Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carmine Sabia for Explain America, and now we have the truth, the real truth, about why former FBI Director James Comey was indicted. Before we get started, please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Those little things really help us out, and they help our channel continue to grow. And you may know that Comey's been indicted on charges of perjury, lying to Congress, and the lie is that he told the people in Congress that, he wasn't leaking information when in fact he was. And now you find out that he actually had somebody on his staff hired for the express purpose of leaking stuff to the New York Times. Now, Andrew McCabe, he testified before Congress that he got the okay from Comey to leak stuff to the media. Andrew McCabe and Comey, they were like this, director and deputy director. They are friends, both hate Trump. So he wasn't doing it to shove Comey under the bus, and then Comey goes on there and says never happened. And so they asked Comey, well, then are you saying McCabe's a liar? Well, I'm not saying that. Well, no, you are. One of you is a liar. Which one is it so we know who to prosecute, Jim? Well, apparently it was you. Apparently it was you. At least that's what all the evidence points to right now, Big Jim. And, well, I think after everything you've done, and Hillary Clinton, by the way, should be thrilled that you're getting prosecuted because in my estimation, you cost her the presidential election. So to me, this is sweet, sweet justice, Jim. I want you guys to watch this and let me know what you think in the comments.
I do want to bring in someone for a comment tonight, the former Justice Department prosecutor who also previously represented President Trump in his classified documents case. Jim Trusty is here. And Jim, obviously you were a former prosecutor for a long time in the Department of Justice. Do you believe this decision to charge James Comey was reached independently of what the president has so clearly conveyed he wanted to happen here?
Well, probably. I mean, you do have a grand jury that indicted. They carefully considered the case. They actually shaved it down to an area that makes a lot of sense. Nobody's actually talking about the specifics of his false statement, but this was a director of the FBI who had a special employee designed for one purpose, to leak things to the New York Times. Now, when he was pressed in Congress on whether or not he had leaked something, he had authorized the leak of a memo he retained wrongfully at his house, he said, no, that's not my recollection. They challenged him about McCabe, another guy who had referrals to the Inspector General for lying. And Comey said, that's not my recollection. So in a weird way, through all this chaos, through all this kind of political interest of what's going on behind closed doors, who knew what, at the end of the day, the indictment that's left is actually pretty simple. He either lied about leaking to the New York Times in a tantrum because he is getting fired, or he didn't. And I don't think it's going to lend itself to the easy dismissals that some of your other folks have been saying they're going to get.
I believe it was Wall Street Journal, but here's the reason that everyone's raised this question is basically Ted Cruz had questioned him at this hearing 5 years ago and said, you're saying one thing, your deputy is saying another in terms of what you authorized to be leaked to the media and leaked to reporters. And he was saying his recollection was right. And then Andy McCabe testified to an inspector general that basically he told Comey after the fact that he had released that information to a reporter. And so I think that is really the question here in terms of that, but also just the overtly, the overt pressure campaign coming out of the White House. I mean, do you not think that is in itself unusual here?
Well, I think there's a lot that's unusual. I don't envy Lindsay Halligan being put into the storm, but I don't really think that Lindsay is the one that's necessarily making all the decisions here. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors at the U.S. Attorney's Office. We don't know how long the Deputy AG and AG have been on this matter, deciding whether or not they think it's a case. And let me just tell you, there's different things. Selective prosecution and vindictive prosecution are two separate things. But at the end of the day, if you're able to point to an Inspector General report and say, hey, look, here's the Inspector General specifically saying Comey set a dangerous example for 35,000 FBI employees because he wrongly leaked information to the New York Times that he shouldn't have even possessed. That's their finding in that investigation. And so if you have witnesses that are locked in, if you've talked to the special employee, maybe you've even talked to the New York Times. I mean, there may be ways of proving this case quite nicely at Comey's expense. And before, we relegate him to Patrick Henry status for being such a patriotic hero, let's remember his little seashell shenanigans where a former director of the FBI makes fun of killing the president.